Are you using your smartphone or is your smartphone using you? We're going to talk about that today on the Five Factors Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Five Factors Podcast. We are so happy to have you with us and talking about various issues that come up in leadership and in our lives and relationships, and we're happy to be with you to do that. And I am Tal Prince, and here with everyone's favorite oracle, Matt Adair. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a patriotic oracle because this
Yes.
is Independence Day and getting close to it this week. And so, excited about it. I'm actually in Chicago this week. My father-in-law is being inducted in the National High School Hall of Fame. So I will be in Chicago this week and looking forward to getting my boys to their first game at Wrigley Field. That seems as much of an American experience as I can imagine. So, yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, not 4th of July weekend at Wrigley Field good, but but doing all right. doing well. Sweltering in the heat here in Birmingham, Alabama, and enjoying my family as we do so. So doing well.
That's great.
And just trying to stay connected to all the different things in my life, and using a phone to do that, and wondering about whether or not that's a great idea all the time.
Yeah, that's called a tease, boys and girls. And so, yeah, here we are. So a lot of times on the podcast, we will talk about one particular area of our personal health as leaders. And again, in the Five Factors framework, we talk about mental health, physical health, relational, spiritual, vocational health. Sometimes we come across a topic that we want to dig into because it really covers all of these. And so that's what we're going to be doing this month, is we really do focus on our relationship that we have with our smartphone, because let's be honest, it's kind of complicated. And so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is when my boys finished up their school year, that creates a change in rhythm for us. We don't have to be up as early. And so for me, I walked into the summer going, great, this will be an opportunity to sleep longer. But what I turned around after a couple of weeks and noticed is that actually hadn't happened yet. And the reason why is I was staying up later. And so when I started really thinking through and kind of stepping back going, why is that happening? And it's because I was pretty much hooked up to my screen later than I wanted to be. And even though every single night I had the intention of, hey, I'm going to go to bed at 10, it would be 11, 11:30, midnight before it actually went to bed, simply because I got stuck on my phone. So I figure I'm not alone, and I will be the guinea pig throughout this month as we talk about these different areas and ways that we really believe that if we want to thrive as leaders, then we need to operate probably a little bit differently than we already are. So it's one of those things that I'll hear. And as I started kind of thinking through this myself and started getting on the Google machine and start hearing people talk about smartphone addiction and different articles and things about people struggling with smartphones. So maybe let's kind of get everybody on the same page, Tal, and talk a little bit about what are some of the signs that how we use our phone is becoming a problem.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to frame it up in terms of looking at it, though. There's no diagnosis for smartphone addiction. That's currently not an official diagnosis. That doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be true. The DSM-5, that's how all diagnosis, that's kind of like the diagnosis of mental and personality disorder Bible. But it's a reflective document, and it's an ever-changing document. Just because there's not something that's an official diagnosis in there yet doesn't mean it's not going to be in the next edition. It's a reflective, empirical document, and it's just very flexible. But if you look at kind of the hallmarks of an addictive issue, am I using it more? Is it taking an increasing amount of my time? Am I still engaged in it despite negative consequences? Are people starting to complain about, would you put the phone down? And I'm still going back to it. And, my spouse is expressing a great deal of frustration that I'm not present, that I'm not paying attention, that she can't have a conversation with me, or he can't have a conversation with me, that I'm not fully present. You start to get some negative consequences from that. Or are you starting to have troubles with sleep, and that's impacting you otherwise because you're staying up too late? That's a real common thing But really what we're looking for is, are we increasing our usage over time? Are we seeing that increase? Are we trying to stop? Are we having days where, and we'll talk about this, where we're trying to go, okay, you know what? I'm not going to use the phone today. And are you able to do that? Or do you find that an increasing challenge? These are kind of signs that we look to as to, okay, it's increasing over time. There's negative consequences. You're not able to really stop it comfortably. Those are things we start to look at and say, yeah, that's starting to sound, very addictive, if nothing else.
Yeah, one of the things that I came across was this interesting little bit of research that the University of Texas and Cal U at Berkeley did together, and they basically did research on cognitive performance related to where your phone was. So if your phone was at your desk versus in a jacket pocket, or in another room, it wasn't on you or around you, you couldn't see it, it wasn't within arm's reach, that the cognitive performance for workers increased significantly in a way that was statistically measurable and verifiable, that this made a difference just by where our phones are. So obviously we're talking about whether it is officially an addiction or just a struggle. It's something that a lot of us are dealing with. And so that's really why we want to kind of jump into this over the next of this month. And so we really want to spend this month helping you get the most from your smartphone. And so again, we'd encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, to do that wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Go ahead and subscribe now, because what that means is every single Monday for this month, we're just going to continue to build on this conversation. So we're going to talk about next week, we're going to talk about kind of the first steps towards freedom and breaking away from this. Then we're going to talk about how do you set boundaries if you need your phone to live and lead. And then we're actually going to come at the end of the month, we're going to answer a bunch of questions. And you can go to our show notes right now, and there's an opportunity for you to ask us a question. Anything you'd like to know about smartphone usage, anything like that. One of the questions we know that we're going to address is, do I need one? And should I have one? So we'll get to that too. But today what we want to do is to really talk about what's possible by choosing to use our smartphone differently. If we have a best use of our smartphone, what's possible here? And so I just kind of want to walk through a list of these, and then Tal, just give you space to kind of talk into this. So we want to basically walk through 5 possibilities. If you and I, as leaders, continue to grow and evolve, improve, take a different path towards the way that we use our smartphone. Okay, so here it is. The first one is this, and this is really in the world of mental and emotional health, is that there's a heightened sense of security and gratitude if we figure out a better way to use our smartphone.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's been a marked increase in depression and anxiety. Just the number of cases diagnosed, there's been a direct correlation, a spike in that number since the advent of the smartphone. So we're seeing it, we're seeing health problems from it. We're seeing mental health problems from it, because we're just so wired in. And the part of the brain that it's really designed to work is that limbic system. It's the reward center of the brain. And so, it's like any other addictive process. When we get a notification on the phone, there's a little bit of dopamine gets released. There's a little bit of serotonin gets released. That's the pleasure chemical, the relaxation chemical. A little bit of oxytocin can get released. That's the bonding chemical. And we always have to be careful anything that we use that can release oxytocin, because anything that causes our brain to release some oxytocin, we can form a legit chemical bond to. And I see that with our tech, a great deal. So, we get those notifications, and that kind of system starts ramping up, and it overrides what's called the frontal cortex, executive command and control, where we look at consequences, right and wrong, values, long-term thinking. It's executive command and control just kind of leaves the playing field, and the limbic system is making all the decisions. And the limbic system is designed to keep you alive, but only 15 seconds at a time. So this is why when you hear about, and I'm, trying to be careful, but when you hear about an addict, let's say a drug addict, and you hear how they got caught, how they got arrested, or what they were doing, and you think, what were they thinking? I tell you what they were thinking. A, they weren't. The extent of what they were thinking is, hey, nothing bad happened to me 14 seconds ago. I'm golden.
Yeah.
That's it. You're working with a 15-second horizon. And this is the only part of your brain that's really working and making decisions until your early 20s, which explains a lot of your college behavior. But so when we start to get into our executive command and control, get into our frontal cortex, and start to really be very intentional and evaluative about what we're using and how we're using it, we're going to calm down. If we can set boundaries down with our frontal cortex and go, these are healthy boundaries for this. I'm not going to leave my phone on my desk. I'm going to leave it in a pocket. I'm going to leave it in my briefcase, somewhere. Whatever that is, where it's not in your sight, where you're getting that immediate reward loop hit. Those things are going to be helpful, and you will start to experience, a heightened sense of security because you're not getting buzzed and notified all the time, getting knocked off course. You're going to feel better about the work that you're doing because you're staying focused and completing it better. And gratitude comes to play. And we've got several episodes and we've got several exercises for you, work on gratitude. But it gives you time to think about and concentrate on what am I grateful for, and that's going to reap major benefits in your life.
Yeah. So, I think there are a number of reasons why you're seeing Apple start talking about the fact that they're getting concerned about quote unquote smartphone addiction. It's why you'll hear different social media groups. Facebook has talked a lot about this, about the fact that they're concerned about this. And I think probably for all 5 of these things that we're going to be talking about here, all these potential benefits of better smartphone use is the reason they're paying attention to it. But it does seem like these issues of increased anxiety, depression, loneliness, all those kind of a mental, emotional health, that's the thing that's kind of got their concern. So that's the first one, is really focusing in that area of mental health, that there's a benefit from a better use of your smartphone, and that is a heightened sense of security and gratitude. The second is improved sleep. So this is the world of physical health. If you find a better way to use your phone, you're probably going to get better sleep.
Absolutely right. And you hit it, in the intro to this section, really was the radiation that your smartphone screen emits. While you can physically go to sleep, and I know a lot of people that do this. I live with one who's not listening to the podcast, and very often at night she believes that playing Sudoku on her phone helps her relax and go to sleep. And while she does fall asleep doing it, and if for not very long, the problem is that what's happening, the radiation that's coming in through your eyes and the rapidity of it, the pace of it, the screen refresh rate of it is overwhelmingly stimulative to the brain. It's a massive stimulant to the brain. Now, what your brain needs to do when you sleep at night is it's doing its reparative work. It's rebuilding itself. Your brain replaces all of its tissue every 6 to 8 years. So it's undergoing major construction at night. It's kind of like highway construction when done the right way.
Where does that happen?
It's done at night, not during the middle of the freaking day. So, especially in Atlanta. So, but this is the thing. Your brain's doing that work, and it needs all of its resources to do that. When you are hyper stimulating it at night, your brain cannot relax to do that work. Your brain is still processing all that's gone on. And so while you may physically be asleep, you are not mentally asleep, and that's a problem. And so you may go to sleep at a regular time and wake up at a regular time, but you don't feel as rested. Right now around the world, we're seeing people, they have their phones on their nightstands. They get up in the middle of the night because they got to go to the bathroom. They come back, boom, they tap the screen and take a look, see if anything has come in, because that reward loop is wanting satisfaction. Well, guess what? Now you've introduced a lot more of that radiation into your brain. You're going to go back asleep, but your brain is not. And so the major time of it doing work is during that REM sleep period. That's when you're dreaming. Your brain is really doing a lot of reconstruction and reparation. When you don't allow it to get there, you don't get that work done, and you'll wake up feeling less rested. So if you'll leave your phone out of your bedroom, so not just leave it out of your office or leave it off of your desk, leave it out of your bedroom so you're not tempted to hit it in the middle of the night. Give me a week of doing that and tell me if you're sleeping better.
Yeah, what that means is that you're going to have an alarm clock other than what's on your phone. But, yeah, that's kind of what we're suggesting here. We're going to make these kind of suggestions all throughout the month, and we're going to make a couple here at the end that I think are going to be helpful for you to break through. So we've talked about mental health, physical health, heightened sense of gratitude, heightened sense of security, improved sleep, all because we're figuring out a better way to use our phone. Here's the third benefit from a better smartphone use, and that is better connections and relationships. So now we're talking about relational health. That's family, that's friends, it's spouse, it's kids, whatever it might be. Just that if we will find a better way to use our phones, a different way to use our phones than we're using them now, particularly if we have that sense of struggling, that we're going to see better connections and relationships.
Absolutely. We've all heard this statement by now, and I ascribe to it. I believe it's true that we are through technology, we are the most connected of any people group to ever live on this planet. Yet we are the loneliest. And just to evidence that fact, the government in Britain has now introduced a Ministry of Loneliness department. The government of the UK is now getting involved because loneliness is such an issue. Okay. That's a major deal. That's not minor. I mean, a major world government is going, hey, you know what? Loneliness is a major issue. Yet we're the most connected we've ever been. But a lot of that connection comes through text messages, Facebook posts, and Facebook has criminally redefined the word friend. And so there's all of those issues. But in our relationships, how many times have you tried to have a conversation with somebody who's looking at their screen? It's impossible to feel like they're listening to you. It's impossible to believe they're really forming a connection with you. And it's really easy to believe they don't care about what you have to say. A lot of relationship research revolves around what we call bids for attention. So anytime you say something to your spouse, hey, babe, I was thinking, and you look to her while you're saying that, or look to him while you're saying that, and they just grunt or give you some verbal cue that says, yeah, I'm listening, but they're not looking at you, then that bid was ignored. That bid for attention was ignored, and you experienced rejection. And your brain is processing that. So now, even at a subconscious level, you begin to get defensive. And so many of us have had the experience of feeling the irritation rise at that point, because anger and irritation is all fear-based. And so if we got a fear of rejection, wait a minute, and it's from the person I'm supposed to be closest to and most securely attached to, and this person's not paying attention to me, not acknowledging my bid for attention. This doesn't end well. And we've had the in one of our episodes a ways back, we had the still face experiment video. Go back and watch that, and that's what a bid for attention looks like, and that's what happens when a bid for attention is ignored. We tend to just absolutely dissolve. And so our relationship is impacted, and the phones have really done that. And it's also, I'm going to go out on a limb and say more than a couple listeners here on the podcast, especially those in Poland, are parents. And you've got teenagers and they've got smartphones, and you've had the battle that they cannot pull out of it. They cannot make eye contact. They cannot acknowledge what you're saying. They cannot, at max, you may get this kind of a bit where it's like, they're looking down at the phone, glancing back up at you, glancing back at the phone, and you feel the split. You're not going to have a secure, healthy connection in that, and you're not going to feel that you do. And so you're going to amp up and ramp up. Well, now you're going to dissolve what relationship is there, because, and so it's a real issue. Our relationships will get far better if we will leave our phone out of a room when we're having a conversation. Or put it all the way down. Most of us have cases, but put your phone face down. If you're having lunch with someone that you work with, if you're having lunch with someone that you love, put your phone face down. Put it not on the table anywhere. Leave it in your car. You know what? Entire generations of people used to go into restaurants and be undisturbable for a while. And the world continued turning.
Yeah.
And things continued to get done. And so it's really helpful if you'll just start to put boundaries. Say, this relationship is important to me. I'm not bringing my phone into this conversation. I'm not going to have my phone in the room. Whatever it is, you will note the increase in connection. If you will, with anyone who's trying to talk to you, if you will look up and make direct eye contact with them while they're listening, while they're speaking to you, they're going to feel far more heard, and your relationship will improve as a result. Just the quality of it. So the phone is a major distraction. It is like another voice in the conversation. If you just kind of think about what it's like to be having a conversation with somebody, maybe you've had the experience of someone just walking up and interrupt that conversation.
Yeah.
It's very off-putting, but it's easier to blame a person for that than it is the technology when we're using it. But the phone, it has the same impact relationally. So we need to put some boundaries and be careful and intentional.
Yeah, and I don't think we think about this as much about in terms of our relationship with God, but I do think that's the fourth area, the fourth benefit that we need to pay attention to, is that I think if we figure out a different way, and guys, you're not going to hear us encourage you to say you must be a Luddite in order to be a faithful follower of Jesus. You need to go flip phone, or, hey, why don't you bring back that rotary phone? You're not going to hear us say that. And so that's why you're hearing us in terms of better uses and different uses of smartphone. But we both absolutely agree that if you figure out a way to do this differently, then it's going to impact your relationship with God. It's going to give you, specifically, it's going to give you a better opportunity to hear him as he speaks to you through the scriptures and throughout the course of life.
Yeah, because and I know a lot of people who do it. They're trying to have a time, reading scripture in the morning, or trying to do some kind of intentional personal Bible study. But their phone's out there because you got to have that perfect Bible and coffee Instagram post that we've not seen nearly enough of, for crying out loud. Hey, look at me, I'm holy this morning. So but the deal is the phone goes off and you can't stay focused, or you're using your phone for your Bible. You've got the Bible apps on the phone and you're going through and you're trying to read scripture in the morning, and text messages come in, email notifications come in, and all that stuff comes in. It's absolutely it's the exact same as our interpersonal relationships. Our spiritual relationship is similarly impacted by the distraction.
Yeah, it's tough. It's challenging because, as somebody who, has kind of their framework for a long time on Evernote, I've had to move away from that because particularly on the weekends when maybe I'm not up as early and the day's already kind of going, well, sometimes I'm up early enough to where I'm not getting a lot of those distractions. But when it happens, Saturdays are usually the most difficult for me because I'm not getting up too much earlier than the rest of my family. So I got not only family distractions, but it absolutely is if I have that phone in my hand. It does. It feels like it's a very distracted morning in my ability just to have a sustained opportunity to listen to whatever God's saying. Okay. And here's the fifth benefit is that it really does come down to something we mentioned earlier about greater productivity at work. So again, we're covering the bases here as we talk about these benefits that come from a better use of our smartphone. We've talked about just the benefit mentally, physically, relationally, spiritually, but vocationally. You're going to be more productive at work if you use your phone in a better way than you currently are.
Yeah, you are. The reward loop that's there in that limbic system, that middle part of your brain, that is just like the organ grinder's monkey. It's just, hey, this feels great. Let's do that again. And it is overwhelmingly distracting, and it doesn't take into account, productivity goals. It doesn't take into account any goals. It takes into account what it wants right now. It's a very immature part of the brain. It's a very distracting part of the brain. It is something that we have to be very, very careful with. Your productivity will increase and you will feel better at the end of the day if you're not just locked into everything on your phone and every notification on your phone. We all get the news notifications every 20 seconds. We all get the email notifications until we learn to shut those things off. One of the greatest things you can do is not have your email open all day. Just check it at a few certain specific windows during the day. We all have this feeling of, holy cow, I don't want to miss out. And I'm sure that I'm indispensable in somebody's world and they need to be able to access me right now at any given moment.
Yep. Yeah, and the free resource that we'll talk about at the very end of the episode. I mean, one of the responses we had in there in terms of, hey, what's one of the best things that I've done for my life in the last year or
Mhm.
so? Matt Chandler out in Dallas basically said the best thing I did was taking email, social media completely off my phone,
Yep.
and just reducing those notifications. And so, for a lot of reasons, but including that idea of being productive at work. So here's kind of what
Mhm.
we're saying, guys. Here's the secret that's really driving this entire episode as we talk about what's possible when you think about a different way to use your smartphone. Your smartphone is volatile. It has
Mhm.
unbelievable potential for good. Technology is a gift from God. Like
Mhm.
he's the one who gave us the wisdom to create technology, but it's
Mhm.
volatile.
Mhm.
Our theology of depravity says that good things get broken quickly, and so that's what happens when we have these things in our hand. We're still trying to figure out the impact of technology, particularly this
Mhm.
technology, on us. And so we just want to make sure that you and I, as leaders, that all of us have an opportunity to thrive as leaders. And we really believe that part of what is going to happen here is for us to reimagine how we use our phone. So we've been talking about a better way to use our phone, but we necessarily haven't sat here and defined what a good use of our phone is yet. We're going to be talking about that over this next month. But here's something that we want you to do this week. So there are apps that exist that will basically monitor your phone usage. And if you use iOS, then you can use the app
Mhm.
Moment, or if you use Android, then you can use the app Quality Time. It's the same function. Basically, they're going to operate in
Mhm.
the background and they're going to tell you how often that you are using your phone. They may tell you which apps you use most. They may tell you how many times you pick up your phone. All those things are there. But here's what we want you to do. We want you to go ahead, and when you're done listening to this episode, we want you to go ahead and download those apps, and we want you to basically use them. Let them run for the next week. You don't have to do anything with them. But before next Monday, when next Monday's episode drops, we want you to then just kind of take a look and see how often have I been using my phone this past week. It's just going to give you a baseline to be able to operate out of and go,
Mhm.
this is how often and how, maybe even give you a sense of how well you're using it. But we just want you to see how significant a part of your life this has become, so that as we continue to talk about our relationship with our smartphone, as complicated as it is, we can basically have somewhere to go from as we're talking about this.
Absolutely. And just remember that anything that we, engage, anything that we're using, and it includes our smartphone, it's always going to lead us towards beauty or brokenness. It's that simple. Anything, Matt mentioned that theology of depravity, we can jack anything up in a hurry, anything that's good. And so it comes down to, are we willing to set boundaries around that and be intentional about our use with it, as opposed to letting it run us? And technology all too often runs us. And think about how you can influence those that you lead by how you use your smartphone. If you decide that, hey, the smartphone is the right thing for me, and I do want you all to have the freedom to understand the answer to that may be no for you, and that's okay. And very millennial. You can go back to the Andy Griffith phone if you want. But the thing is to be very intentional about it, and understanding how you're influencing those whom you lead, and and your family as well. When they see you being responsible, and I see this in my office all the time. I get parents coming in wanting me to talk to their kids about how much they're using their smartphone and it's too much. And I've literally had parents, while telling me about that, looking at their phone. And irony, party of one, your table is ready. It's crazy, but we're all there. So, think about how you're influencing others. And so next week here on the podcast, we're going to be talking about more specific steps to help you move towards greater freedom and more responsible use, of your phone and technology. And we're looking forward to doing that. So we don't want you to miss that, because I think these next few weeks are going to be some really critical, important steps for you, for your family, for those whom you lead. And so we want you not to miss that. So do us a favor and just go ahead and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, be it Stitcher or whatever your favorite place is. Just go ahead and hit subscribe so it comes to you automatically, and you'll hear this. As we go through this, we want you to miss that. We don't want you to miss that. And also, go ahead and give us some comments, give us some feedback. All that is really helpful to us as we move. You can interact with us directly on Facebook. You can interact with us us directly on Twitter or there in the comments section. We invite that, we welcome that, and we desire that from you. So thanks for listening. Matt, you got anything else to say?
No, again, I'm just looking forward to continuing this conversation this month and being the guinea pig and talking about some changes that I've been making, some things I'm picking up from the past that I just had gotten away from. So I'll be the guy who's screwed it up, and hopefully we're just putting it back together throughout the month. So it should be fun.
All right, awesome. Download moment if you're iOS, or download quality time. Watch it for a week, and you'll be ready for the next podcast next week, and we'll see you then.